Alright, so today I want to show you guys how to make arches in Blender. Specifically, it's going to be to make arches that are kind of like game ready in a sense. And I'll explain what that means as I go. But as a first stage, how are arches used? Arches are used to kind of visually denote like the entrance to a new room. Like arches aren't necessarily required, but I think they're good visual indicators that like something's coming up, and it's the geometry of an arch is like nice to look at. So yeah. Anyways, with an arch, the way we can do an arch, what I'll start with is I'll make two separate rooms. So the first room will be like, we'll move this on the X by, I guess, 2. Sure. And then I want another one. I want to move it on X by -4. Yeah, okay, so let's just assume these are two rooms, and what I mean by room is I kind of mean like it's a floor, so I guess like in reality I'd probably want to like scale these down on the Z by like 1/4. And then I'll like scale them on the Y by like 3. Okay, so we want like an arch between this. So the first thing is, how do we make an arch? And I'm going to show you like the first way you might think of making an arch and why that doesn't actually work as well as you would hope. So for this arch, I'm just going to grab one of these guys. I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to move it on the X by -2, so it's in the middle, and then we're going to grab the top of it, and we're just going to make it tall. So the first kind of way you approach making these initially is you can grab these two edges, and then with the bevel mode, I need to grab this one, and then you just like pull down on it. Oops, what do I do here? I'm also just gonna fix the scale here, so I'm gonna apply my scale. So that the bevel modifier does things properly. Yeah. So here, with the bevel modifier, if we make the width 3, that matches like the number of blocks you see here. And one thing to note is, okay, so let's do that, or let's do that one more time. So let's bring it down, then go in the panel, change it to 3, then change segments to like 5 to round it out. Okay, and next thing we'll do is we grab the front and the back face, and then we inset it. And you'll see there's like an issue going on, and that's because the bevel modifier created actually two edges that are on top of each other here. So there's probably a way to do this off the get-go with that modifier, but I just do this. I select like what I know has duplicate things, and I do merge by distance, so MB, and it removed 2 vertices, so I know that worked. So then when I inset it, so I just need to select the front and the back. When I inset this, I'm gonna get that, so there's no more issue, and then I bridge the edge loops, right? So that works fine, but there's an issue, which is it's coming off the ground. So one way to fix it is like you could add a ramp, but now we're just getting into like, we're trying to fix problems that shouldn't have existed in the first place. So if we go back to this and we select all of the faces, and then we select white, and that's the last selected thing. And then if we turn on snapping and we snap to edge, and then we GZ, we move down, then it will align that last selected face. So it will like touch the ground. This is still kind of bad because we just have like this arbitrary geometry poking out the bottom. And this isn't even the last issue that we're gonna have here, because for this to be game ready, so additionally, like what you usually have going on here is something like I'll put some walls in as well. So I'm just gonna duplicate this. I'll just like move it over here, and then I'm gonna rotate this along X by 90, so it's like a wall, and then I'll just move it in really quick, so GY, and then G, oops, I don't know what I just did. Oh, I just changed the rendering. Okay, and then I guess I'll just move it one more time, GX. And then we can grab one side of it and then move it over here. So this is like a wall type of deal going on. And then you could also do the same for the top face if I can click on it. So here, there's a couple issues with this. Like if you're moving fast and you slam into that wall, that's gonna be a pain. You're gonna stop for sure. Like it's not smooth and you get caught on this. So like arches that like come in a bit are fine, I find, in general, as long as you bevel their edges. So what I would do next is I'd select this, and then here's where the first issue comes up. You want to bevel this, so you know, so the way I like select that maybe would, I just hit everything else really quick and then just turn on like X-ray mode and look at it from the side. So you can select this, you can select that, and then, oh right, so I guess we don't want, oh okay, there's a better way to select that. So instead of selecting like that, let's just put it on X, make it big, and use the circle selection mode to select by faces. Yeah, this is gonna be fine. So select the outer part, and that's pretty easy to do. And then we can use Control I to invert that selection to just this. And then we just want the edges, so we can turn it on its side. And then we can use circle select with shift held down to remove the inner edges. Oh, and I didn't want to remove those. Give me a sec. Okay. And we don't want these. And then we just want to bevel this because then it becomes smooth. So just open the side panel and we click bevel. And we do that, and we can change segments to like 5. Or, you know, it doesn't even need to be that high. It's 3 works. Okay, but like you have another issue, which is it's beveling this edge here because it's like it's beveling on that like vertex, and that's like kind of nasty. You don't want that. You'd have to like remove that. And there's other issues too. Like this, not only is this like having that bevel issue, also it has like this gap up here that needs to be filled, because usually when you have an arch, it like attaches cleanly to the ceiling. So like, you know, if I select this and I grab the top, so we'd want it, oh, what am I doing? Oh, I need the face selection mode. So, you know, if there was like another thing, like a ceiling, there'd be like this triangular gap right here. And you know, that makes sense why that would be there, but that's usually not good. I mean, in certain cases, you might want an arch just like this, but inside of buildings, you usually want to like fill that gap. So, I actually did think about this for a bit because it could be an interesting way to kind of get some like fun gunplay with like a grenade launcher, being able to like spam into a room from a upper corner. I think that'd be pretty funny, but it seems kind of, I don't know. Either way, we want arches of both forms. So this arch like has the a few issues as I explained. Like first issue is it's poking at the bottom. The second is it has a gap, and the third is like you can't bevel this edge cleanly. So this is fine, but now we're gonna talk about like, so now we understand the issues with kind of this approach. Let's now explore a better approach. So I'm just gonna grab all this and I'm just gonna move it away for now. Okay, so how can we do this cleaner and better? So we can first just start with a cube again. I guess maybe I will keep a few things and I'll just remove the stuff I don't want to see. Actually, yeah, I'll just move the old arch out of the way. Okay, so how do we do this? First thing is let's start the base of the arch in the same way. So I'm gonna duplicate that and move it over. And we will just grab the top face and move it up to here. Because what we're gonna do now is we're gonna create an arch that's better. So the first thing is we'll move origin to geometry. So the center point is actually where the center of the geometry is, and then we can move. So we're gonna, the reason why we're moving the cursor and the geometry, so you can't move the, like the only way you can move the cursor is by moving it to a geometry point. So I first updated the origin of this shape to be the center, and then I can do cursor to selected, and that'll put that guy in the middle. I don't think all of that was necessary, but I just like doing it. And then I want to create a circle so that that circle spawns there. Now it's kind of sideways and not very good. And I'm just going to do 16 for the number of vertices, so it's a little, has less polygons. All right, great. So what can we do with this? Let's rotate this on the Y by 90 so that it's like facing the object. And now let's just like scale it up a bit so that it would look like a nice arch. And what you can also do is you can like scale it along different axes to like produce different types of arches, like not as steep, but we'll just go with the standard one for now. And yeah, we can just move it up. And I think a good way to align this, like I haven't really thought about aligning it perfectly, like I just didn't care that much, but let me try this. I think I need to just turn it on for scaling. I'm gonna see if this works. This is an experiment. Yeah, so as you can see, it's hard to snap the circle on, if that makes sense. But we do know it's like 3, so if I just like scale it by 3, it would be kind of perfect in that sense. But then again, you don't even need to go to the edge of it. So I actually just prefer doing a hand scaling, and that's usually just fine. Next up, I would select these vertices, and we're gonna press X and delete those vertices. I guess you could also dissolve them, and I want to see what that looks like. Yeah, so dissolving is actually better because you get this. And then we're just gonna select the bottom edge, and then we're gonna, we can't just move it, we have to actually extrude it down. And we're gonna go past the bottom. So now we're making a cutter, pretty much. And we don't actually need this thing anymore, so we're gonna just delete that edge. So now we have like a clean silhouette of the cutout of the arch. So then we're going to select the cube we want to cut into. We're going to go to edit mode and select everything. And then we're going to do control click on the circle. And then we're going to do knife project. And we're going to cut through the object. And that's good. So now we've cut into our wall. And what this is going to allow us to do is, if I go back for a sec, I think when we cut through, where did we cut through? So when it cuts through, it selects edges for you, and that's handy. So keep that, and then immediately do a, so we want to bridge edge loops again. So let's do that by like deselecting those two edges so that there are two distinct loops. And I wonder what would happen if I deselected these two. So if I do bridge edge loops, yeah, that's actually cleaner, because if I look at this object and I just move it up a bit, what's going on? Turn off X-ray. Okay, I just did a bit of experimenting there. But what I was experimenting with doesn't really matter. You want to just do your bridge edge loops here, and what you get off this is this guy, which I think is good. I think I'm just trying to check if there's like an extra face, I guess, going on or something. I wasn't sure. And it does look like there's an extra face, so you can just remove that face at the bottom. It's not required. But yeah, so now I'll just bring this down and do it down here so I don't have to move it back. So I'm just gonna cut that face out. Okay. Right. So you'd end up with something like this. And this type of shape is way better to work with in general, because so one thing that's true here is the arch, like I want to add a floor to this, and what I should do is just move it up one and bring the ceiling down a bit. And you could have accounted for this by making that initial block we cut from have that property, and then you can kind of give it a floor by just grabbing this and duplicating it, then moving it on the X, or just moving it here works. So this type of arch is better for a couple reasons. The first thing is there's no spare stuff coming out the bottom, which I like. Another thing about this, I'm gonna show. There's a couple really nice properties. So We want to bevel this edge though as well. And yeah, let me just kind of just focus on the arch itself for a minute. So there's a couple things. If you wanted your walls to be thicker, there's like easy ways to do that. So one way would be I would scale it on the Y to bring it smaller, and then I could just like grab each wall and then like drag it out. Or I think equivalently I could do a selection here on vertices in the kind of see-through mode here on vertices. Select like the inner vertices, and then I could just scale that on the Y to make it a little thicker. Yeah, so I can make it thicker like that, and then I can scale on the Z. I have to deselect the bottommost for that. Scale it along the Z to like make it smaller. So modifying this arch is pretty easy to do, because you only have to worry about like the inner part of the arch. The outer part is just like your basic rectangular shape. And now we can go ahead and select the vertices we want to operate on, and I'll bevel the inner edge, and I'll explain what that is. So we will then go to edge selection mode, and we can select that and that. And then I can just knock those guys out of the way. And with this, we can now bevel on this. So let's go to the bevel. And I think there's a scaling going on here. Just want to make sure there's no scaling. So the bevel modifier works as expected. Right, okay, so we can bevel into it like pretty hard with like 3 segments. And this, so something like this is way nicer for a player. Like just like if I make that 4, so if a player like hits a corner, there's 2 extra walls that will like continue their like movement speed. So like if you won't, even if you hit a wall, you can glance off it rather than having to just immediately stop. So this is like more forgiving on a player's movement, and I like that. And so okay, that's a way nicer arch, and you can see it looks like that. And you know, if we didn't want it to be, and even with all this extra geometry, doing those changes I mentioned about like the sizing of it is still fine. So I can scale that back out on like my Y. Like I could scale, I guess, yeah, so you could scale, but probably what you want to do now is grab the vertices you want and then just like move them. So I could just do a GY, or I guess like, let me just do some experimenting here. Yeah, I can just scale it on the Y. That is fine. I think even that's fine. Yeah, that's totally fine. I might just want to change the scale of the upper vertices as well. So I can grab those and then SZ to either increase, and then yeah, maybe like that. That's a really clean arch. So, you know, you can still play with this. It's not like brittle. And another really good thing that I like about this type of arch is, let's just say we wanted the rooms have a bigger gap, right? So the rooms, there's more of a gap here. It's actually really easy to extend an arch like this. So if we select the arch, we can grab 1/2 of the arch and we can move it along X until it hits there, and we can grab this and do the same over here. So that gives us like a similar like feeling. I think we could also have maybe scaled this. I don't really know. I could try. I don't think it works as well. Yeah, okay. You can scale it out too if you prefer like a more smooth entrance. So this, I really like this because of all the different options it has when it comes to modifying it to fit different like rooms and stuff. So I'm a fan of this approach. And I'm pretty sure that's all I want to talk about for arches for now. But yeah, another thing to note is like, yes, it does make the area smaller a little bit because it's coming in on the sides. There's a couple options. I actually prefer, like, I don't mind this extra spacing. You could also like use some scaling to change this, but you could also like move it out a bit so that it doesn't have that property, but then there are other problems that come up. So I do think this is probably one of the cleanest solutions that I've come across so far. And yeah, I just want to share my method for making arches. And that's it.